The morning sun filtered through the blinds of a small-town diner, casting long stripes across the checkered floor. Maya tightened her apron and took a deep breath as she stepped onto the floor. The bell above the door jingled, customers chattered, and the scent of sizzling bacon filled the air. It was just another shift, or so she hoped. Maya had been working here for 3 years. She was known for her quiet grace, her quick service, and the long sleeves she wore even in the middle of summer. Most didn't ask. But some noticed, and some whispered. Today, a group of 4 men settled into a booth near the window. Loud, cocky, the type who looked for something to laugh at. Maya approached with her usual calm, pen in hand. But as she reached over to place a menu, her sleeve slipped up slightly, revealing the pale, textured scars that wrapped around her forearm, and a faded tattoo just visible near her wrist. The room didn't fall silent, but it felt like it should have. One of the men snorted. "Damn, girl. You get caught in a house fire or something?" Another chimed in, "Bet she tells people it's from a knife fight." Maya didn't flinch. Her face didn't change. She simply took their order, her voice steady. But inside, her chest ached. Not from their cruelty, she'd learned to bear that, but from the memory of what those scars truly meant. And how no one ever seemed to care enough to ask. The diner door creaked open again, and a gust of warm air swept through as an older man stepped inside. He wore a worn army jacket and walked with a slight limp, the kind that never really goes away. Frank had been through enough to read a room quickly, and something about the tension near the front booth made him pause. He noticed the waitress, Maya, her back straight, her smile polite but distant. She moved like someone carrying weight that couldn't be seen. He slid onto a stool at the counter, watching quietly. The group of men who just placed their order were snickering again, casting glances in Maya's direction. One of them nudged another and whispered something cruel under his breath. Frank's eyes narrowed. He'd seen that kind of look before, disdain hiding behind arrogance. His gaze drifted to Maya just as she reached for a coffee pot, her sleeve slipping once more. And there it was, a flash of deep scarring and something else, ink. Faint but familiar. A line of numbers, a small emblem. His breath caught. He knew that mark. It wasn't just any tattoo. It was military. More than that, it was specific. Tactical. The kind only issued to certain deployed units. And not many people bore that mark unless they'd been in the thick of it. Frank sat up straighter. He turned his coffee cup slowly, eyes never leaving her arm. It couldn't be coincidence. That waitress wasn't just a survivor, she was one of his own. Maya stood behind the counter, refilling a sugar jar, when she sensed someone approaching. She looked up to find the older man from the stool, Frank, standing nearby, holding his coffee with both hands. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he nodded toward her arm, his expression gentle, not prying. "Where'd you get that ink?" he asked quietly, eyes on the faded tattoo near her wrist. Maya hesitated, her body tensing. People usually asked with mockery or suspicion. But something in his voice stopped her from brushing it off. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the way his stance matched his question, steady, respectful, and somehow familiar. "FOB Ramadi," she said cautiously. "2nd Recon. 2009. Frank blinked. The word seemed to hit him like a wave. He slowly set his coffee down and reached into his jacket, pulling back his sleeve. There, on his forearm, was the same tattoo, only bolder, darker, older. His voice cracked when he spoke. "You were in Ramadi? 2nd Recon?" Maya nodded. "Medic." Frank stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. "You saved lives." "My team. We lost 4 men that summer. I remember a medic pulling a guy out under fire. Small, fast, didn't hesitate. That was you, wasn't it?" She said nothing, but her eyes welled up. No one had ever connected the scars to something honorable. Not until now. Frank took a breath, his voice thick. "You're not just a waitress. You're a damn hero." "And I remember." Frank turned from the counter, the weight of recognition and respect burning in his chest. He looked over at the group of men still lounging in the booth, chuckling among themselves, oblivious to the truth they just mocked. Maya quietly returned to work, her face composed but her hands slightly shaking. He approached their table with slow, deliberate steps. The diner seemed to hush around him. The men looked up, confused at first, then wary as the old veteran stared them down. "You boys got a lot to say about scars," Frank said evenly. "But do you even know what you're looking at?" One of the men scoffed. "Look, man, it was a joke." "No. It wasn't," Frank interrupted, his voice firm. "You mocked a woman who wears scars earned in a war zone. You laughed at someone who ran into fire while others ran away. You see ink and damage. I see a warrior." The men shifted uncomfortably. One tried to speak, but Frank raised a hand. "She served in my unit. 2nd Recon. Ramadi. We lost good people there." Maya patched up bodies while bullets flew past her head. "She didn't ask for thanks. And she sure as hell didn't ask to be laughed at by cowards who never wore a uniform." Silence settled. One man lowered his eyes, cheeks flushed. Maya stood frozen behind the counter, eyes wide, lips parted. Frank turned to her, nodding with quiet reverence. "They don't have to respect you. But I do. And I always will." The last customer had left. The diner lights were dimmed, and the clatter of dishes had quieted to a peaceful hum. Maya stepped out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, ready to head home. Frank was waiting by the door, leaning on the frame with the patience of someone who wasn't done speaking truth. As she approached, he straightened. "Let me walk you to your car," he offered. She nodded, surprised but grateful. Outside, the summer night air was soft, crickets chirping in the distance. They walked side by side in silence for a moment, until Frank stopped beside her old sedan. "You don't have to hide anymore," he said gently. Maya looked down, instinctively pulling at her sleeves. But then, slowly, deliberately, she rolled them up. All the way. Her scars, her tattoo, all of it bare under the street lamp's glow. For the first time in years, she didn't feel exposed. She felt seen. From inside the diner, a few staff members had gathered near the window. One started clapping. Then another. And then a customer who hadn't yet left added his hands to the sound. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. Maya blinked, heart thudding, a small smile breaking through her usual stillness. Frank raised a hand and gave her a solemn salute. "You didn't lose your strength over there," he said. "You brought it back with you." And as she got into her car, Maya realized, this was the first time she believed that, too.